This time of year for me, guys, is kind of bittersweet because I'm wrapping up all my summer projects, getting my yard kind of set up and ready for winter and taking care of things around the house that need to be winterized. But it also allows me to catch up on projects that I want to do and need to do that I put off all summer long. This is my mobile welding cart that I use outside. You guys probably see me use it on many videos when I'm doing outside work. It allows me to put a couple machines on it, carry a bunch of tools, bunch of junk, and I have everything that I need on this mobile cart. The one drawback is if I'm using gas, I don't have a provision or a way to have the tank affixed to this cart. Well, we're going to do that today using some aluminum scraps. My thoughts are to build a bracket that sits right here on the bottom and maybe attaches to that shelf, and it just supports one bottle, that's it, and then has some like braces that come up to hold it. Then it'll just have a chain. This is where I secure the bottle now. It'll just have a chain that goes around the bottle. I've got a bunch of aluminum scraps, so I think what I'm going to do is make like a hook. So basically a piece of angle iron that goes this way and then we'll weld our shelf to that. So that'll give it something to grab onto. Then we're going to have to run like some legs back to maybe like this shelf that grabs onto this, that keeps it from tipping over. That's expandable foam. It doesn't come off if you get it on your hands. You know how that goes, guys. We all have those projects that we just keep putting off and keep putting off and putting off until one day we finally say we're just going to do it. I had a bench grinder in my workshop for like 3 years, just sitting on a bench, not even fastened down, until eventually I just decided it's time to build a base for this. One of the first things we're going to need to do is measure one of these bottles. Now, I use these pretty regularly. These are 125 is what they're called, and that measures, looks about 7 inches or so. So let's go, let's say 9 inches. That'll give us a nice pad, so if I want to put a larger bottle on it, we still can. I'll take you guys into my secret room. You guys don't see this too often. This is my tool room. So just a quick glance at all my stuff. This is where I keep all my stuff pretty much, or overstock stuff, and I'm just kind of packed right full. I got a bunch of scrap here, and this was that aluminum I was telling you about, those angles, so that'll work good. These are just like some 90-degree bends. There's some drops. We're going to talk about all kinds of tips in this week's episode. And you guys could build this out of steel too, guys. You don't have to build it just out of aluminum. I'm doing it out of aluminum just because I enjoy working with aluminum. There's a 9.5 right there. Sold right here. Let's see if I can do this without tipping my pile over. There, so that's 9.5 wide. That'll work great. So this piece here will sit on the frame of that shelf like that. We'll weld this to that. So that'll give us this right there. And then we may take this same stuff, put it up on edge, and we could either weld it like this, weld it up underneath to give it just some rigidity. Oh yeah, I think that would look nice like that. Then go around this on like the 3 sides. You wouldn't need to do it on the back because it's going to be rigid there. Yeah, that's going to look nice. I think that's what we'll do. And then maybe we can do some angle braces off this up to either the top shelf or the middle shelf. Oh yeah, this is going to be cool. So that's the plan. We'll cut this down 9 3/4 in that direction. So we'll just make it a square. We'll make it 9 3/4 in the other direction. We'll cut this for the back to hook over, and then I'll just grab a couple more of these and we'll make a frame and frame in 3 sides of that. Now, to purchase these stuff, guys, whether you're building this out of steel or whether you're building it out of aluminum, the best thing for you to do, and this is exactly what I do, is go to your local fabrication shop, not Home Depot or Tractor Supply or any places like that, because the prices there are pretty much for what you can get for what they sell a little 4-foot piece for. You can buy like 20 feet of material. So their prices are a huge markup because it's a convenience factor. So go to your local welding or fabrication shop or metal supplier, someone near you, and ask what they have for metal drops. A lot of times they'll just allow you to go out there and take a look around in the shop and you can see what you can find. generally they'll sell it to you by the pound, so it's pretty cheap when you buy by the pound. So you can get a lot of good deals. Pick up some oddball stuff just like this. May be kicking around in your shop for a while until you have a use for it. But again, you could also build this out of steel too. So one of the first things I'll do is check it for square. Now that edge looks a little ratty to me. Touching right here, and it's got a little gap on that side. So we'll check it off this side. So these two are the factory edges. So we'll measure off these. Actually 9 7/8. So we'll make this 9 7/8. We'll just make it a square. I just did a little short video this week on this saw and this blade. I love this saw. At the time of this video, the saw is like 380 bucks. It folds up. It's got wheels on it. It's a great like job site saw. And right now I got it set up with a multi-purpose blade. You can cut metal, wood, plastic, aluminum. You can cut everything. So, and that's what I talked about in that little quick video. You can cut multiple materials using one blade. It's just a wicked time saver. And the one thing I like about this saw is you can cut full sheets with it. This extends out. This table will extend way out this way. This side of the table will extend way out that way. So you can work with like a full sheet of aluminum or a full sheet of plywood. It just works awesome. You can see it's got a little indicator there, so we're going to set that for 9 7/8. You guys are at a little bit of an angle, so I'm not sure if it's showing that or not. And I never take things for granted. I always want to measure to make sure it's going to be right, and that is precisely 9 7/8. Which it would be anyways, guys, because I took my time when I set this saw up to make sure that everything was accurate on it. But like I said, force of habit, I like to check things. We know that this and this is the factory edge, so that's the edge I'll feed it through, and then we'll cut this right after. Now I'll have to take off this guard to make this next cut. Then we'll set the blade to the height of the material we're cutting. Now you can use a regular carbide tipped blade to cut aluminum in a regular table saw. What makes this a little bit different is that this one can actually cut metal as well. So like wood with nails in it, some light gauge steel, obviously aluminum, and go right back to cutting wood. And I've cut sheets of this when I built the enclosed trailer project, and this thing is still sharp to this day because a couple weeks ago I just did like a back room remodel where I put a washer and dryer up in my bathroom, and I used this to rip all the lumber, the same blade that cut all that aluminum. So it worked out awesome. So now that I have this set up, okay, I know that this would be the right length by bumping it into the fence, but you don't necessarily want to like do that because that could pinch this in the blade. So I'll just bump that into the fence so I know it's at the right area. Kind of hold this down, then I'll just slide my fence out of the way, and then just slide my little sled right in place of it. Now I can make that cut. Now we know that that's the perfect length. It has to be. And that'll fit right over that shelf. Oh, this thing's going to be awesome. This thing's going to be really nice. I'm going to try to leave you guys with a bunch of different tips all throughout this video. And this applies to steel too, on how things work. This saw came with this multi-material blade on it, and you can get all sorts of different blades for this saw. Alright, so this is upside down, guys. This is the side that's going to hook over that shelf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flush it up right there. Do the same thing on the other side. Double check it. And I'm just going to run a scribe line right down the length of it. And I'll tell you why. Then we're going to have the taller sides sit up. Okay, like this. But to do that, we're going to have to cope out this corner, meaning that we got to come down and cut this little ear off right here. We'll have to do this to both sides. So to get this to work, we're just going to flush up this edge right here, put a scribe mark right in alignment with the scribe we just made. And we can just scribe it along just like that. So now this piece will come off right here. This will be a bandsaw cut. Now you see how I cut that backwards? The scribe line is on the back side, so I could see just as this blade broke through the front. That's when I stopped. Now I'll turn it, and I'll cut this section out right here. And there it is. That's your coped cut. Look at that yellow expandable foam. Yeah. That's going to work perfect. So then we can weld it all along here and along this edge. Now we're going to scribe a line on this so we can make our next piece. We can take our little scribe and transfer that onto that as well. Now for this cut, guys, I'm going to be using my Evolution 355 MCS. I know this probably seems like an Evolution video, but like I said, I have a lot of their tools, and it's handy because they're affordable. Compared to a lot of the other companies out there, their tools are a fraction of the cost and just as good. So there's our mark right there. And for this one, I'm just using my steel cutting blade, because like I said, you can use regular carbide or wood or even a steel blade on aluminum. Nice and straight. All right, so there's that. Now we just got to build that side, then this side. Then we can get this welded up so it's kind of like rigid, and then figure out how we want to put on our supports. If you guys were doing this with steel, I'd probably just use regular, something like some 1/8 inch steel plate would be plenty. And probably just like some 3/4 or, you know, inch and a half's pretty common angle iron. Then you'd be in good shape. So I've just flushed up this side here, and I'm going to do the same thing. Make a little mark here on my scribe line, and then I'm going to make another mark here on my overall cut length. And just so I can see things a little better, I'm going to put a scribe line on it to brighten it up. So now I know to cut out this. These saws are loud, so you want ear protection. And back to the bandsaw. Quick check of the fit. That looks good. I like it. Now we'll scribe it over here. And we'll make one this width with 2 coped corners on it. And just so we don't get things confused and mixed up, let's do this. 2, 2, 1, 1. And when I don't have to use a tape measure, guys, I don't. I'm a big kind of guy who just likes to use the piece itself if you can, and use a scribe line. I just like the accuracy of that. And that'll be our third piece, and we'll have to do a double cope on this. The best thing about this saw, guys, is that you can go 45 degrees in both directions with this thing. It's about time. I know I said it before in my other video that I did with this, but it's about time that someone finally came up with this idea and did it, because it's been needed for a while. Probably can't see the marks from where you're at, but I will hold this straight edge up to them. And the other is right here. So that will come off, and that will come off. Back to the bandsaw. Do a real quick mock-up. Make sure that everything is going to fit the way we expect it to. Set it up on a little block here so that things can kind of naturally hang down. That's going to work out really nice, guys. That's going to work out awesome. Weld it all the way around. I can go here, here, and here. I mean, these don't really do anything other than just keep the bottle inside of it so it's not sliding off it when it's vibrating and you're pulling it across something, but not a whole lot of strain on it. These won't have to be full welds underneath. These will just be like probably a weld, then a weld, and maybe one in the middle, and that's about it. The corners will be a little hard because they're thin, and we're going to MIG all this together. And the reason I'm doing MIG is because it's something that you guys could easily do and use with the existing equipment that you already have. All these pieces could have been cut using pretty much a skill saw. It's just going to take you a lot longer, and it's a little more dangerous, that's all. But you could do it if you're comfortable with tools. Let's get this thing prepped up so we can get this all tacked together. I'm going to go all around this area with a flap disc and clean up all the oxides around this so we can get a good weld. Make sure you're not using a hard rock wheel just like this. If you look at it, most wheels that you're going to find in like your hardware stores and the big box stores, they're going to say they're for either metal or stainless steel. If you are using a hard disk, make sure that it says aluminum on it, but generally stores don't carry that. So that's why it's a little bit safer to use a flap disc on the aluminum, because then you don't have to take the chance of this clogging up and exploding, unless it's made for aluminum. And I said we're going to be MIG welding this, but guys, if you're interested, I have a video on how to convert your MIG welder. I'll have a link up above. You can do it for 25 bucks. It's a matter of just changing out the liner. It's super simple, and you're going to need a tank of gas. A lot of people don't realize that a regular MIG welder can weld aluminum. There's certain things you have to do as far as like wire and whatnot, but super easy. So for 25 bucks for a liner, you can be up and running and welding aluminum. It's pretty handy. But for this one, we're going to be using the Welder 211P. It has like 10 presets, and I've got this set up with a spool gun. If you're doing some occasional aluminum, this works perfect. One of the things that you want to make sure that you do, if you use it a lot, is that you clean out the nozzle. Because if the nozzle's all plugged up or it's got a bunch of spatter in it, if you're not cleaning that out, it's going to disrupt the flow of the gas that comes out. You're going to get better coverage. So just keep your consumables and whatnot clean. Make sure it's all clean down here. I'm using 35 thousandths Blue Demon wire. Turn on our argon. Open it slowly. Stand off to the side. That way, if things blow apart, it's not going to blow up at you or in your face. With non-flammable gas, argon, C25. Open them all the way because they have what's called a back seating valve. So when you open this up, it helps to seal it past the stem of this. You wouldn't do that with flammable gases like acetylene. You're only going to open those a little bit in the event they catch fire, or you get, you don't have spark arresters and it chases back through, you can turn it down. But for these types of tanks, open them all the way. I'm going to pull the trigger a little bit and read my gauge right here. This one just so happens to read at the center of the ball. So I'm running about 55. Lose that down a little bit. That's pretty close. The next question that I get asked all the time: how do I know what to set it for? How do you know what settings is? Well, if you did it every day, you'd just automatically know what those are. If you worked with one process, you'd just memorize it. But I use a lot of different processes, so I can't remember all that. So I use a cheat sheet, just like everybody else has to. Most of these machines come with a little card, and this is intended to stick on your door. And what you do is you figure out what you're working on for material: carbon steel, stainless steel, aluminum. Then you figure out what you're using for wire. It's always going to be argon with aluminum. Well, I guess it could be other, but... And then the thickness of your plate, and then the diameter of your wire. And then you line that up, and it'll give you a chart, and it'll give you some settings to set it for. That's my starting basis. If you guys don't have one of these charts, I'd love for you to join our welding community over there. I'll have a link down below. Up at the very top of our welding community page, you'll see some tabs. One is like for pictures, if you guys want to share pictures in the group. Another one says files. Within that files, there's a cheat sheet for all kinds of welder settings, something you can download and it's safe to have. I would recommend you or refer you to that. It's a handy reference, but that's where I start when I'm not sure. I start with a welder setting chart. And the next most important thing, guys, is to know how your welder operates. That's probably more important in knowing what the settings are, because once you know what to set it for, if it's not doing something properly or how you would hope it works, then you need to know what you need to adjust on your welder to change that parameter. So that's where you need to understand how your welder works. You might have to do a little bit of homework on it to figure out what's what hot start is, how those features work, and how adjusting those or changing those affect your weld. Once you have those settings in, I like to save it and store it. This allows you to have 10 presets. You can see load and save and change whichever one you want. So I know that I want channel 0, and that'll load that channel for me because I've already saved it into memory. So I'm going to be using 17.9 volts, 102 amps. Here's the chart that I have, so I know that channel 1 is for 1/8 inch aluminum, using 5.356 wire and 30 thousandths diameter. Okay, I've programmed channel number 2. It's the same as this, but it's just a little bit hotter. This would be good for like coming in with 2 corners. Something like right here for like an outside weld where 2 corners meet so it doesn't blow apart. But when I hit something like here, maybe I want a little bit hotter so I can hit channel number 2 for that. I'm using a spool gun with aluminum, 3/64, 4043 on 1/8 inch aluminum. I use channel number 3. And I've done this all along. And the way I've arrived at these numbers is starting out with the base figures that they give you for the machine. Then I just adjust them up or down and change the settings until the machine works the way I want. Then I store that into memory. So now some of you are probably wondering, well, why can't the factory just like store that setting for you? Like, that's a number that I use. Why can't everybody use that? The reason is technique, guys. Everybody welds different. That's the thing. Travel speed's different. The contact tip to work distance is different. How you weld will affect how your bead profile looks and how the joint's going to perform. So that's why. That's why they give you the chart, because there's so many variations. Air temperature, material that you're working with, how you weld, all of those variables come into play. I have a tendency to weld hot. I tend to weld hot and fast, but if you're a slow welder, you'd need to weld a little bit cooler, so the settings for me would probably make you blow right through the other side. So that's why it's important that you guys practice and know how your machine works, so that when you change a dial, you know how that's going to affect it. Is that going to change something up or make it go down? So know your machine, and then you can start out with your basics on that welder settings chart. And then you can just fine tune from there. So at a bare minimum, guys, these are the things you're going to want. Aluminum fumes are really bad for you, so you definitely want to wear a respirator if you don't have good ventilation. They make all sorts of different filters for welding and fabrication. 2097 is one of them, and if you want to know what else, I have a list of these filters on our Facebook page in that files thing again that'll tell you what filters are for what. But if you don't want to smell the smell that you can smell through these, you can get a added benefit cartridge of a 2297, and these actually have charcoal in them, so they're a little bit more money, but they'll filter out just a little bit better, and they'll keep out the scent too. So I put just a little tack on that. You can see it just started to wet in right there. What I was checking it for is bleed through or transfer, and I can see that it's starting to transfer to the other side. So if this was an issue, you'd have to consider how you want to weld this. You may want to weld it on the outside perimeter and do it that way so you don't see the bleed through. But it's not going to be an issue on this. I kind of expect it in a few places, and I'm not overly concerned about it. I trim my wire back every single time to get rid of that little BB that's on the end. That'll give you a good start. And I'm holding about 5/8 of an inch from contact tip or nozzle to work distance, or from the nozzle to my work about 5/8 of an inch, a little bit more. So this is our basic shape. If this was the shelf right here, this would hook right onto it just like that. I'm real happy with it. Not a lot of transfer. Yeah, there could be, because I'm going to be introducing a little more heat into it here shortly, but overall, I'm happy with it. Now we can get everything else welded up. Then after we do that, I'll bring the card inside. We can mock it up, and then we'll get the braces on it and all that other stuff. We got a little bit of bleed through right there. Like I said, I kind of expected it, but not a problem. I already know this is going to be a difficult weld, so probably, just because there's a big gap too, So I know that what I'm going to have to do, TIG welding would be the way to do this, but I'm going to MIG it, and I know I'm going to have to like pulse this. So likely going to have to grind these outside corners just for appearance wise. They don't really do anything, but I want to make it look like all one piece. I'm pretty happy how this is coming out, guys. So this is going to sit on here just like this. I think I'm going to have to put another piece of material underneath it to keep it from kicking back. So I'll probably put another one of these on end. And then we'll do something like this up to the top shelf. And we'll have another one of these brackets that hook onto this. I think that'll work absolutely great. So to keep this so it doesn't slide backwards, I've welded just a piece of flat bar along this, spaced it out just using a piece of scrap steel that I had, slipped it down in there, did 3 welds and just radiused the edges on this so that it's not sharp and there's no points on it. And I radiused these edges too. So that'll fit like over this, but on the bottom shelf. You got to work through some of these things to how you're going to support something when you're going to weld it up and try to figure out how it's going to go together. So what I did was I just took a little piece of aluminum and stuck it underneath there, and then just set one of these pieces of scrap metal on top and clamped it on that side so it's cantilevered out over this. And then just take this, hook it in like it's going to go. You see how this is downhill? Then just clamp that together. So now this shelf is supported 90 degrees to this shelf right here. So now what we got to do is make our angle pieces that connect up to this. So what I'm going to do is hold this up here, clamp it, trace that shape around it, and then do the same thing at the top. And I'll come back and show you when we're ready to tack it up. And here it is, guys. This thing is like super light. So putting it on is super easy. All you do is just bring the top like this and just hold the top tight to it. And then just guide the channel in the bottom. And that's it. These right here, I still got to put a hole here and here. And this is where the chain's going to go around to hold the bottle. But yeah, this thing's slick. Let's throw a bottle on it and give it a try. I love it, guys. This thing works awesome. Yeah, it's everything I wanted. If I wanted to put a bigger bottle on there, I could. You can see how it's got room all the way around it. So now when I'm working, I can just wheel this cart all over the place. It'll make it super handy. And that's all there is to it, guys. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. There's new videos every Friday, so don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Until next week, guys, I will see you then. Take care, stay safe, and God bless. And just remember, I used aluminum because I had the scraps laying around. You could easily build this out of steel or make your own idea, but this is just to get you guys inspired of some of the things that you can do. I'll see you guys next week, guys. Take care. Stay safe. God bless.